So you've realized that you have codependent tendencies, and then you're wondering, how can I reprogram this pattern so that I actually start having healthier relationships, healthier boundaries, not just in my relationships with my friends, family, and potentially your partner, but at the same time, how do you use this new repatterning to really help you thrive in your business? Well, tune in, because in this video, I will be showing you, first of all, what a codependent pattern is, what codependency patterns are, and the 6 steps that you can actionably take right this very moment to help you repattern that old tendency that's no longer serving you, to help you so that you actually achieve your goals and build a successful business. So here we go. So you probably know this by now, right? What are the signs of someone who has codependent tendencies? Now, the language that I'm using here is very specific. You are not a codependent. You have codependent tendencies. And when you can reframe that story and that language that you use in your mind, that is actually the first step. Because when we identify with a behavioral pattern, which is what codependency is, when we identify with that, when we make it our identity, then it is more difficult for us to actually change it, because it is ingrained with us in a deeper level. But if we associate with it more like a behavioral pattern, then it's much easier to change our behaviors, right? So that is actually the first and bonus and most important step that you really need to get on board with your mind, and how you talk to yourself and how you associate with this tendency. So what is it truly? So people with codependent patterns are people who usually put themselves last and prioritize other people's needs and wants and desires first. And what they tend to do is they take responsibility for other people's feelings, people's problems, and they take on other people's problems instead of, first of all, dealing with their own problems. They're just more comfortable with other people's problems. Why? Because that's what they learned. That's how they've been conditioned. That's what's been reinforced as they've grown up throughout their life. And it's usually the people who tend to be in roles of like caregiving, right? Of being the savior, the rescuer, the helper. Those usually are the types of people who fall into codependent patterns. So if you're someone who is drawn to caregiving professions, if you're someone who's drawn to being an entrepreneur to really help people, you are more likely, most likely, wow, you most likely have codependent tendencies, and that is actually not a bad thing. People think, that they have to completely eliminate this pattern. It's not about completely eliminating that, because at one point or the other, that behavior served you in the past. That's why it's there. If you didn't need it, you wouldn't have it, right? That just makes sense. And so it is a spectrum, right? Consider this as a low spectrum of codependent patterns, and think of this as high. If you're on the high spectrum, shift that a little bit to make it a little bit healthier, because there's a healthier small part of you that is okay to be codependent, right? It is a problem only if you are actually sacrificing your own needs. You're sacrificing your own needs, your own wants, your own desires for other people. That creates inner turmoil and resentment within you. That becomes the problem. So if you are finding that you are almost there where you're just sacrificing and you're exhausted and feeling a little bit angry and resentful towards someone else, well, because you've put other people's needs first, doesn't it just make sense that you would be exhausted, tired, fatigued, and a little bit resentful, right? That makes sense. So how can you give compassion for yourself and just be aware and observe this pattern instead of beating yourself up? Because although this was not one of the tips, this is actually also what is going to help you heal. So here are the rest of the 6 tips that you can do right this second to repattern this behavioral pattern for good. So the first one is to reclaim your sense of self. Usually people with codependent tendencies have been so used to identifying based on what other people perceive, what they believe other people want them to be, right? And so they have created this identity based on what their caregivers expected them to be, instead of really finding out who they are truly, what their values are, what they stand for, what they stand against, what they want to do, what their wants, desires are, and who they are at the core foundational level, and what kind of personality traits they have. So the first thing that you want to do is to really dig deep as to who you are as a person. What happens if you ask yourself, or who really am I, right? Who am I? What comes up for you? Really get into the deep layer of this and make sure that you do this without thinking about what other people think, because that's the codependent pattern, right? Overly thinking and caring too much about what other people think, so you can't think for yourself. So this is the time where you actually get to reclaim your own sense of self and truly know who you are, because once you know who you truly are, you will no longer need to protect other people's feelings, because you can speak your truth. Number 2 is to actually maintain healthy boundaries. So what does this mean? Boundaries really start with you, right? So if someone is treating you like shit, if someone is asking you for things when you're already full to the brim, or if someone else is expecting too much for you or from you, or you're actually volunteering for things that you don't have capacity for, gotta stop that shit, right? Make sure that you are aware and don't overload yourself with the responsibilities that you cannot handle. This boundary, this healthy boundary, really needs to start with you, and being able to be honest with yourself with how much you can actually take on and sticking to that. So look at your life right now. What have you committed to that you didn't really want to commit to? And how can you, for next time, stop taking on things when you're already full to the brim? Be clear on this. If you want to, only take on 3 extra things that don't have to do with your business or your personal work or anything like that, stick to those 3 things, right? If you can only commit an extra hour per day for someone else, make sure you stick to that 1 hour instead of extending it to 5 hours, right? That is why we create resentment within us, because we overfill. And when we overfill, we cannot we cannot achieve or work through it or say what we were going to do, then that just makes you feel like crap, right? And again, that creates that cycle of resentment. So by being able to commit to the things that you can only handle, that is how you're going to really repattern this overly people-pleasing type tendency. Number 3 is to be able to give yourself internal validation. Now, in this day and age where we have social media and notifications galore everywhere, this can be quite challenging, right? And, because you've been so used to, we are conditioned to receive the dopamine hit from social media, from the dings, from the likes, from the comments, right? Especially if you have an online business, this is a big thing. And sometimes when we are not able to give ourselves that validation, we seek it externally. We seek to want to feel significant based on helping other people, even though they don't want your help, right? That's the codependent pattern. And that really stems from not being able to give yourself internal validation. So ask yourself, when you're craving to help someone else, when you're trying to reach for someone else, when you have that one person in your life where you're just like, yeah, this relationship, I'm overly giving, how can you go back and again go back to that boundary, right? That healthy boundary that you want to set. How can you instead of going to someone else to make you feel important, how can you make yourself feel important, right? Help yourself first. This is crucial. So make sure you do this. Make sure you take the time during the day, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes, to give yourself internal validation, to tell yourself you're doing a good job, to tell yourself it's going to be okay. That self-talk, internal self-talk, is amazingly, crucial at this time for you to also repattern. Have a compassionate relationship with yourself and give yourself the positive reinforcement whenever you do something that you said you were going to do. Number 4, improve your self-awareness. What does this mean? Really, truly, it means that you can always improve on getting to know yourself at a deeper level, right? We can always know ourselves deeper. We can find more things about ourselves, and we can allow ourselves to be truthful with where we're actually acting out this codependent pattern. Focus on finding these things that you want to improve on. It's not a bad thing to have this, like I said earlier on in the video, right? It's more about self-awareness, being aware that you are playing out this pattern in your relationships with your clients, right? Do you tend to want to, are you fantasizing about an X result for your clients, even though that's not really up to you? That is a codependent pattern, right? Do you expect your clients to have results at an X amount of time to look a certain way? That is a codependent pattern. You don't have control over that, right? So just being able to, again, give yourself the internal validation, know when you are doing this pattern, because once you know, then you're able to shift it. We cannot fix, or we cannot repattern what we don't understand or what we don't know about, right? You cannot shift something that is unconscious. So when you put the effort in just increasing your awareness, increasing your insight as to where these patterns are showing up to in your relationships or in your life in general, then you can definitely start rewiring this codependent pattern. You can start choosing yourself instead of choosing someone else. And this is a skill set, right? This is a skill set that you get to evolve to, right? No one was able to squat 100 pounds without first squatting their body weight, right? So think about it that way. Know yourself more, and you will only have you to thank in the future. Number 5 is taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, emotions, and actions, all of the things. You are responsible for how your life plays out. You are a creator of your life. You've heard of that before, right? And so when you are able to take responsibility for all your actions, then you are able to really focus in on yourself and empower yourself. That's really empowering, to know that you have control over your actions. A little empowering, but a little scary as well, right? So an example of this is, if you are a coach, if you're an entrepreneur, you have coaches and mentors, right? And so when you invest on them, it is not up to your coach or mentor to give you the results. You are responsible for it, right? So something as simple as that, taking responsibility for the mistakes that you've made. Codependents also tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist, right? So being able to look at your mistakes, take responsibility for them, but not beat yourself up. There is a fine line in saying, oh man, I fucked that up. But at the same time, still continue to move forward instead of beating yourself up for messing it up. There's a difference there. So by taking responsibility, this also means that you get to choose to improve, right? You get to take your mistakes and learn from them. Because truth of the matter is, if we just, coaches and mentors are very, very, very helpful. And, we need them to level up faster, right? But it is not up to them to give us a result. And when we can take responsibility for that, if we can be in a coaching program and say, yes, like, this is amazing, I'm learning how to do this, and I can apply this for myself and make it better in terms of what really works for me, isn't that more empowering? And isn't that what it's all about, right? If we give our power away to our coaches who are going to give us results, that's not their job. And if it is, what are you going to do after that program, right? You're going to be reliant on them, which is the codependent pattern, right? So being able to, there's nothing more empowering if you are more than if you were in a spot where you're in a coaching program because you want to be there. You want to be there because of the coach, not because you're reliant on them to give you results, right? It's a different vibe to be there because you love being there, because you feel supported, instead of I need to be in this coaching container because I need them to get results. No, that's not true at all. And red flags, right? Red flags if that coach is making you feel that way. So make sure you take responsibility for all of your actions because you create it, and that gets to be empowering. And last but definitely not the least, number 6 is prioritizing your self-care. Why is this important? Because, girl, codependency means that you are taking care of everyone else, right? So by prioritizing your self-care, this is how you'll actually learn to take care of yourself. Funny how that works, right? When you're able to really take care of yourself, when you are able to unapologetically do it, once you're able to carve up the time for yourself, what does that do for you, right? It creates that self-belief, it creates that self-trust, because by just acting in ways where you are prioritizing yourself and putting yourself first, you are telling yourself that you are valuable, you are worthy, you are significant, right? You are worth the investment of the time, the money, and the energy, right? And so when you're able to carve up the time, maybe it's just for a half an hour walk, maybe it's for that 1 hour yoga that you can just be in and allow yourself to move, to flow, to release, to relax, right? That is good for you. You are investing in yourself, in your health, mental, physical, and emotional health, right? And so when you prioritize self-care, when you're drinking the water, when you're nourishing your body, when you're moving, when you're actually getting in touch with nature, when you are forming these healthy relationships with healthy boundaries, you are telling yourself that you are worth it. You are telling yourself that you deserve it. You are telling yourself that you matter, you are significant, that you are good enough because you're taking the time for you. And isn't that the best feeling, right? And I know that this can be very uncomfortable, but this is growth, right? Discomfort is growth. And if you are so used to if you are someone who is so used to giving to someone else, giving back to yourself is going to be very, very difficult. But this is the work. This is the repatterning that you get to do, right? And this is exactly what I help my clients with. All of these 6 things is what we work on together when we work at a one-to-one capacity, because it is super important to get to the root cause of why these things are not naturally just showing up for you. There have been prior conditioning, maybe beliefs that you have gained that are not your own. Maybe it's some trauma in the past that is preventing you from naturally just doing these 6 steps. So it's important to be working with someone who, knows about these things, who knows how to rewire these unconscious patterns, because a lot of this is something that we're not aware of, right? There's something that these patterns are unconscious. So by being able to rewire your subconscious towards putting yourself first and being unapologetic about putting yourself first, wouldn't all of these things be easier, right? Wouldn't healing be much better? How would it impact you if you actually came from a place that where your cup is full, to not only give to your clients, to give to your business, but also give to your family, your kids, the people around you, right? How would that feel to be able to just prioritize yourself first and come from a place of actual giving instead of obligation, right? That's the thing with codependency. Sometimes you feel obliged, but what if you're just able to give because you have so much to give, because you have prioritized yourself, you have cared for yourself, you have acted on your promises, right? And how would that feel for you moving forward? That is what true codependent healing is. And it is exactly what I help my clients do. So if you are interested in this work, make sure you message me or comment on the video below, and I will have no problems reaching out to you as well. And if you have any questions, also make sure that you comment below. But just to summarize, the 6 things that will really help you heal this old codependency pattern so that you can go more towards the low, healthier side of this is to, number 1, reclaim your sense of self. Number 2, maintain healthy boundaries. Number 3, give yourself the internal validation. Number 4, improve your self-awareness. Number 5, take radical responsibility for all your actions. And number 6, prioritize your self-care, because you are your best investment and you definitely matter. You are inherently worthy. And when you are able to know that deep down, that is when your life changes, your business changes, your relationship changes. So, hope this helped. I will see you soon.